What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and today we got a special guest in the studio, Anthony Goins. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Thanks for coming to the studio today. For the people that don't know you, I'd love for you to give a quick introduction about yourself and a little bit about what you're doing today.
So Anthony Goins, I'm assistant men's basketball coach at Clemson University. Just finished up my first year there, and I'm out here in Nebraska, visiting my dad, and excited to go over to Capital Cigar Lounge and be able to talk to some young professionals. And hopefully somebody pulls something from the word today.
Yeah, we actually got Tony and Tony both in the studio today, so it's a special day here in the studio. It's good to have you guys as well. So Anthony, talk to me about what you were like as a kid, and I'm excited to hear what these guys have to say about it as well. But tell me what you were like as a kid.
Well, I'm pretty sure they would both have different perspectives on what I was like as a kid. You know what? I think I was just always involved in something. I think I kind of like locked in on certain things, and part of that was my parents did a good job of pushing me in the right direction in terms of what was going to be important. Academics was a non-negotiable, and then whatever else I was passionate about, whether it be basketball, football, track, like I was always in something, and I just loved to compete. I love to compete, no matter what it was, whether I found a way to compete at something in the classroom to become a better student, and just like to get out there and be competitive. I think not that I was a perfect kid or anything by any stretches of the imagination, but I was fortunate that I had a lot of great people around me that, just tried to continue to guide me in the right direction.
Yeah. And I know just from interviewing your dad a little bit, I know athletics was very important, but school always came first.
100%. 100%. That was a non-negotiable that school was going to be an important part of my life. So, and that was drilled from early on.
Day one. That's good.
So, as I got older, it was just something that carried over.
That's good. And for the listeners that are just getting to this show is called Spark to Fire, right? So in this show, we're basically asking the question of what was it like when you had that tipping point moment to where you knew you were going to go down the path you're going down today. And for you, that would be rising to the top of your craft in athletics, and you're going to continue to grow in that world. So when did you know you wanted to go further into athletics or into coaching, or what was that like, kind of figuring out that moment for yourself?
Well, it was funny kind of how it happened. Like it kind of navigated itself for me a little bit. After college, I got into corporate America. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. But I quickly found out that that wasn't what I was supposed to do.
Where'd you go?
I worked at corporate Foot Locker in the marketing department.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
Like when people hear that, they go, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah.
But I just realized it wasn't for me.
It wasn't you.
I knew that I loved helping people, but I didn't really know like how I wanted to do it. And so I actually started helping kids get to prep schools out of New York. And I was fortunate. One of the people was like, "Hey, like, do you want to work at a prep school?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool. Like, I get to coach and all that kind of stuff. That would be cool." So, I was fortunate to get the opportunity. And when I went up there, like, we had some really, really good players. Like one kid was one and done. Like the rest of the starting five was going Division I, II, and so I was really fortunate. I had a great head coach that just kind of allowed me to dive into everything. And there were assistants there or programs coming in all the time to recruit our players. And one of the times, one of the guys came in. It was actually somebody I went to college with. And, he was an assistant at a high major school. And, like, we got to talking, and he was telling me how he got there and all of that kind of stuff and what he does. And, I got quiet for about 3 days. And I asked my head coach at the time, I said, "Do you think I can coach in college?" And he was like, "I think you can do whatever you want to do." And I was like, "All right, cool." And
Love that.
Like I cut off my cable, I sold my video games, and I would just like watch film and fly anywhere and everywhere of somebody who would just let me listen and learn. Because I was like, all right, I'm gonna get there, but I just got to be ready for it.
That's huge.
Just kept trying to get better. And like that was the moment I decided I wanted to be a college coach.
So it was just that affirmation from your. So remind me again, who was that said you can do whatever you want?
It was the head coach of the prep school. So I was
the
the
head coach of
assistant.
the prep school
Yeah,
said that.
I was
So
the assistant.
That affirmation when you were the assistant coach there, you just said like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Like
That's huge.
I was really thinking about it. because I was enjoying coaching at prep school. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world.
Mhm.
And, I was all in for it. But, like I saw somebody coming from the same school that I came from that was doing it. And I was like, all right, well, I know somebody that's doing it,
Yeah.
so like maybe I can too. And, so I was just like, all right, I'm going to be all in on it.
Yeah. And so you made an active decision to go all in, sold the
Mhm.
video games, cut the cable, everything. What
Mhm.
else? What was it like? Did you have a bunch of friends who were asking you like what the hell's going on, or what were they like when you were doing that?
No, you know what? I really didn't like talk to many people. I was isolated anyway. The prep school I was at, like it was in the middle of nowhere. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like people like really saw it.
Right.
And it wasn't like I talked to a whole lot of people about it or told a bunch of people like, hey man, I want to coach in college. Like it was literally something that I just made up in my mind that I was gonna do. And I was just going to work so that I was prepared for it. Like, J. Cole had this great line that said, um, you know, don't tell your dreams because people will shoot them down.
Mhm.
If they don't know your dreams, then they can't shoot them down. So I just didn't tell anybody. Like I
Really?
knew I wanted to do it, and I didn't really want to hear any negative feedback about it. So I just I just like shut up and like just started working. But at the same token, like that wasn't like all I was about. Like I understood that families and things had entrusted us with their kids to make them the best student and player possible.
Mhm.
And so I was all in on that. But along the way, I was trying to learn to get better, and like they kind of served as guinea pigs for all the things that I was picking up.
Right.
And like I was just bringing it to the program, trying to make us better. Because I was like, okay, like let's just win championships. I was like, I'll get what I'm supposed to get when I'm supposed to get it.
Yeah.
And college coaches came in, and I got to know them, and they were like, hey man, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I'd love to coach in college one day. And it afforded me to get some interviews.
So how does that process actually happen? So you have coaches coming in and then you just have an opportunity that pops up and you get an interview, or like what's that whole
Yeah,
process?
so, again, they were recruiting the players, and like the players were, with me a lot. I was working out with them and driving them here and there or whatever it may be. So, I developed good relationships with them. So the coaches would talk to me, to like, hey, how's this kid, whatever it may be, what do you think of this kid? You think he can play at this level, all of that kind of stuff. And, I was always trying to be honest. And, some coaches would be like, oh man, well, like, what are you looking for? And hey man, just let me come into a practice and learn. Like that was my only thing. I
Yeah.
was like, listen, I don't want anything from you. I
Right.
want to coach in college one day, but just let me come to practice and learn something. And that was it. And so I did. Anybody who would let me come, I did. And
And which practices did you go to?
oh man, I went to a ton of Yale's practices. I went to Quinnipiac's practices. I flew down to VCU and went to like a week of their practices. UVA. I sat and talked on the phone with coaches from West Virginia, and again, anybody who would let me in, I would go. Division II, University of New Haven, like it didn't matter.
Right. You were selling yourself,
Yeah.
right? You were
Well,
showing them
no,
you were interested in everything.
well,
as
I genuinely wanted to learn. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't even selling. Like I was like, okay, like when I get there, like I don't want to mess it up because I probably
Right.
won't get another chance if I do. And I knew I didn't know everything, so I was like, okay, well, let me figure it out. Let me just
Right.
get around it and learn it.
Gotcha.
My first college interview, we had a kid that was going to that school. It was at Bucknell, and one of the assistant coaches, like, I guess he just took a liking to me, and
Yeah.
they had an opening, and he was like, hey, I threw your name in. And so they invited me down for an interview, and the head coach told me I wasn't going to get it, and he had somebody else, but he was like, hey, I want to get to know you or whatever. So I went down and did that interview, and it was cool because it kind of gave me an opportunity to see what the process was going to be like. And like I interviewed for it, like I had a chance to get it,
Yeah.
but I knew I wasn't, but I was okay with that.
But you were giving yourself those reps the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the consistency that I'm finding within your career is you're constantly putting yourself in position to get those reps,
Hmm.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And so, tell me what happened next.
So
You get your interview.
I go through the interview, and the head coach calls me. He's like, hey, you did a great job. Like I actually genuinely thought about like, man, should I hire him? But I have to, there's somebody else that like we kind of already in a process with or whatever. And so I was like, okay, well, at least I know
Yeah.
I didn't go in there and mess it up.
Yeah.
So that was good. And, but still just went back and was like, okay, just want to make this program as best as it can be. And we ended up winning still the only New England championship of that prep school, which was awesome.
That's
and
awesome.
again, I was fortunate the head coach of the school just kind of let me go, and we did scouting reports, and I would put them together and all of that kind of stuff, and he just let me do it, and it helped me learn a lot along the way. And so, I was there for 3 years, and I was headed into my fourth year, and I got a call from a coach who I had met, from him recruiting our guys, and was like, he just randomly called me up and was like, "Hey man, what you got going on?" And I said, "Oh man, just getting ready for another year and all that kind of stuff." And so he was like, "Hey, well, like there's a opening up at Dartmouth. My boy's the associate head coach. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, of course. Like,
Yeah.
I'd love to throw my name in." And so he was like, "All right, I'm gonna give him a call and like see what happens." And so some time went by, and I actually had this situation where I was having these really bad stomach pains, and I took myself to the hospital because I was like having like excruciating stomach pain. They thought it was an appendix, but come to find out, it was like a twisted colon. And like the
Oh
doctor
man.
came in my room at like 10 o'clock at night, and she was like, "Ah, how you feeling?" I was like, "Oh, I'm all right." And she was like, "Well, we got a little issue. Like, your colon's the size of a golf ball, of a softball right now. And like, if we don't go to surgery in the next hour, there's a 60% chance you could die." So I was like, "All right, so we're going to surgery then." And I remember, like, right before we got into surgery, I told her, like, she was getting ready to wheel me in and all of that kind of stuff. I said, "Doc, make sure I wake up. I'm going to coach in college one day. I don't know when, but I'm going to do it." And literally, as I was walking out of the hospital, I got a call from the head coach at Dartmouth and asked if I wanted to come interview. And I was like, "Yo, can you give me like a week? Like, I'm just kind of coming out of the hospital." And I went, and, a week later, he met me at a hotel in Connecticut. And I remember I had my suit on, but I couldn't button my pants because I still had the staples in my stomach. And did the interview, got the job, and
Man.
went off and, started up at Dartmouth. But, I knew I would get an opportunity. I didn't know when, and I also didn't know it would be for no pay.
Right.
So I went up there, and it was completely a volunteer job, so I was 27 working in a cafeteria from probably like 5:30 to like noon, swiping cards and trying to do scouting reports at the same
Yeah.
time. And you weren't allowed to sit down or anything like that. And I was able to eat lunch there and all that kind of stuff. And luckily the sandwich lady would throw a couple sandwiches in my bag so I could eat.
Yeah.
And then I was going to coach Division I basketball. When I got the opportunity to coach, like none of it mattered. Like I wasn't, when I was on the floor coaching, when I was, working out with the kids, like I didn't think about any of that stuff. So
You're
like
like, I'm where
it
I'm
was,
supposed to be.
yeah, like, so if I had to do that to get to that, like it didn't matter.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't care,
Right.
Like once I stepped on the floor, once I was recruiting, once the games came, the practices, like that was all I cared about,
Mhm.
and figuring out how to win. So if I had to swipe cards in the dining hall from this time to this time, and so be it.
Yeah.
But so it was worth it to me.
Right.
It was worth it. Yeah. So there was a situation that the head coach like wanted to move me to operations job, which would essentially take me off the road and take me out of a coaching position, because that position was paid. So he was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you do the unpaid for a year, and then I move to this spot and do paid." And I was like, "No, I don't want it." I was like, "I want to coach. Like I don't, I don't need to do operation stuff." And I,
Yeah.
I was like, "Did I do anything wrong?" He said, "No, no, no. I just want to pay you." And I was like, "I don't want to do it. Like,
Not about that.
yeah, I've only been on the road for 1 year. Like, I need to coach. Like, I don't need to do operation stuff. Like, I don't." He was like, "But it's about the money." I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want the money. I work in the dining hall. I'm fine." And like, I think he really wanted to do it. And fortunately, one of my mentors was the head coach at Yale. And I kind of, I talked to him a little bit, like, "Hey, what should I do?" And he said, "Hey, I'm having a opening come up. So like, would you be interested?" Still not for pay. Still just kind of the same spot, the volunteer assistant. I was like, "All right, cool, I'll do it." I just need to be on the floor. I need to be coaching.
Right.
And so that was how I ended up at Yale, because he gave me another chance, and just went down there, and we were fortunate. We had a lot of success while I was there.
Mhm. You get an opportunity at Yale.
hmm
Talk
hmm
about that.
Um, so it was definitely a different scenery. I don't know if you've ever been to New Hampshire
I
before,
haven't.
but you know, it's cold and it was kind of middle of nowhere. So New Haven was cool. Like you know, it was a city. It was things going on. It was diversity. So that was cool. And the head coach was a really good dude, and you know, one of my best friends. And like again, just kind of he let me go. You know, he was like, "Hey man, we're kind of building something here." Like they had just the year before, they had, you know, almost won the league, and they had some really talented kids, and you know, it was kind of starting to build a little bit. And they had went to the CIT tournament and lost in the championship game, and they were returning a lot of players from that. And he was like, "Hey man, I think you know over the next couple of years we got a chance to really take this thing to another level." But he was like, you know, we got to kind of build off of some of the success we've had in recruiting, and we got to take it up to another level. So like we need to really, really, you know, kind of hit on some big time classes.
Mhm.
So like he's like I need, you know, let's really go and try to go after some high level kids. So I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And you know, he kind of let me go in recruiting. You know, we had a great staff there, and we identified some really talented players. And we were able to beat out some high major schools for kids. Kids turned down ACC, SEC, A10 offers to come to Yale. And so we started to see the recruiting build a little bit. Um, and you know, the success followed. You know, my first year there, we lost in the game to go to the NCAA tournament.
Oh man.
The next year, we went 13-1 in conference and won the Ivy League. Went to the NCAA tournament, beat Baylor, and then you know brought in a really high level class, and you
Yeah.
know they've kind of springboarded from there and kind of taken off. But you know it was a great opportunity again. That the head coach just let me kind of go and go
What was that
wherever I
like?
needed to do, and
What was it like when you had the opportunity to go out on your own? I mean, you know, we obviously interview a ton of like entrepreneurs and elite
hmm
performers in this show. So, you know, you had the opportunity to kind of, you know, be an entrepreneur, you know, somebody that's inside of the organizations kind of gets the autonomy to go do their own thing 100%. So what was that like for you?
yeah. Well, I think you know kind of being on the same page with him and knowing what he wanted.
Yeah.
So if I brought like a kid to him or idea, you know, in terms of like anything, you know, I think he knew that I was on the same wavelength as him and what he wanted for his program,
Yeah.
what kind of kid he wanted for this program, where he wanted the program to go. So like, you know, even during the workouts and things like that, like
Yeah.
with player development, he kind of like you know let me go with that, and you know in recruiting. Like, hey, if I need to go over here for 3 days, like, okay, cool. He needs to go over there for 3 days. Like, he knew I wasn't, you know, out there, not trying to promote the brand the right way and not trying to get what he wanted.
He
Um,
trusted you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was great. That was great. You know, but at the same token, like he was still, um, I think he understood that I also needed that because I wasn't getting paid.
Right. Yeah.
um,
You had to have some sense of agency,
right,
right, over your work if you're
right.
not going to get paid for it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But so you know, it was awesome. It was awesome, and it helped me out a lot, and I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot from that situation.
Hmm.
And but you know, at the same token, you know, as you're now, I'm starting to get 30, and I'm like, all right, man, like this is year 4 of doing this thing,
Right.
like, you know, man, like, am I really cut out for this? Like, I'm doing this for 4 years and had a lot of success doing it, winning and being a part of winning programs and recruiting at a really high level and things like that, and surrounded by some great people. But I'm like, at some point, I got to get a check for this.
You got to be winning
Yeah,
financially at a certain
yeah,
point,
yeah.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm 30 years old and, you know, I'm like living in a dorm room with my fiance. Like, I was like, yo, man, like something's got to break eventually.
Right.
And after my 3rd year was probably when I like, you know, okay, I'm like 30, I'm engaged. Like, I'm starting to get a little frustrated at this point, but I'm not necessarily thinking about that while I'm working. But like when you stop working, when you're home, when you're by yourself, like that's when you think about it.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I never really told too many people this, but like after the end of the season, like I kind of given myself till May, and so season ended early March. We lost in the championship game in the conference tournament. I gave myself till May to get another job, and I was gonna quit. Like I was like, oh,
Two
maybe
months.
maybe it's not for me. Like
Yeah.
I got to do something.
So what'd you do?
Well, fortunately, after the year we went to the NCAA tournament, we
Mm.
beat Baylor was the year that Villanova won the national championship. And I knew some guys on staff there. And, like, again, I'm always trying to learn something. So I was like, well, if they won a national championship, there's got to be something they're doing right.
Right.
So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, man, like, would love to come down and just talk basketball with y'all. And, you know, he was like, yeah, come on down.
What'd you learn from him?
You know what? Like, I watched them work out, one of their players.
Yeah.
So learned some things that they do working out. Learned a lot about, like, how they treated their culture, which was huge. And then we talked some X's and O's stuff. And
Right.
but, like, definitely what was important to their culture, you know, how they kind of went about player development, and the focus that they put on that, and how it was big for their organization. So, you know, drove myself down to Philly and, you know, spent some time with them. And as I was walking around with the coach who I knew, he introduced me to the associate head coach. And he was like, hey, man, like, this is Baker Dunleavy. And so, you know, he and I exchanged information. We talked
Yeah.
for about 20 minutes or so. But fast forward to, like, okay, like, I'm, you know, getting to the point where I got to do something. Like, I got to get paid
Still
to
gotta
do
get
this.
money.
And I given myself till May to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was coming close to the end of March. And I had some things kind of going, like, you know, this person would call, but it didn't work out. And this person would call, and it didn't work out. And one day I got a call from somebody, and they said, yo, would you be interested in going to Quinnipiac? Baker Dunleavy is about to get the job over there. And I was like, yeah. And so he called me up and was like, hey, man, like, you know we met a few years ago, and we've been keeping in contact. And I was fortunate. Some people said some good things about me. They didn't say anything negative.
Yeah.
But you know, he was like, I think it'll be a good fit. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, man, would love to. He was like, okay, cool. And this was on Sunday. He said, I'm being announced on Tuesday. Just be at the press conference. No interview, like, nothing.
No way.
Nothing.
Just be there
Just be there.
in a suit.
And at the press conference, ready to rock and roll in a suit.
You would
So-
know, like, they just, based off of your character, based off your experience, like, he'll be good. It's fine.
I think, you know, he got the word from some people he trusted.
Right.
And then because we had kept in contact,
Right.
like, he was at least familiar with who I was and what I was about, and knew that I came from a winning program,
Yeah.
and respected that program and what it brought to the table, and everything like that. So I think it just kind of lined up.
I would submit that it's probably a lot about your conviction too. Your stick-to-itiveness of, like, I'm not going anywhere. And then, like, you made a pretty hard decision, like, okay, if I don't get this done in May, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And even then, after you get in call after call after call, like, we might have this, we might have that, that keeps a lot of people going, right? That in, like, that May extension might have extended into August, right?
Yeah, it could have.
It could have, but for
Yeah.
some people,
I'm
but, like,
fortunate that I didn't have to make that decision.
right, but you had strong conviction both ways, like, strong conviction when I'm going to stay in the program, and then strong conviction when, like, all right, enough's enough. Like, I got to
Yeah.
go find something that's going to make me some money.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I was fortunate, like,
Yeah.
that the head coach was, like, trying to help me out as much as possible too,
Right.
and because he knew, like, okay, like, this dude's got to get paid, like, you know,
course.
he was trying to help me out.
Yeah,
as
he
much as
respected
possible.
you obviously as well.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's huge.
And so, like, he was, like, trying to get me out.
Yeah.
But, like, I was going to, like, not coach anymore. Like, I was going to go get a regular job. I was like, well, I got to get paid. Like,
Right.
I have to make a living for myself. Like, I'm 30. Like, this is the way it works.
I have a fiance.
Yeah,
Live in
yeah.
a dorm room.
Yeah. Like, that's humbling. That's
Yeah.
humbling.
Yeah.
But you know, despite the success and how it looks on the outside, like, this is my reality. And I got to do something about it. So,
And that's
like,
something
I was
never once considered watching basketball.
Yeah.
That assistant coach, or, you know.
Well, it's only in that league.
Only in that league.
It's only
Right.
in that league. It's only,
Yeah.
that rule only exists in that league.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you why. I don't think there's a coach in that league that agrees with it.
Right.
But it just is what it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was like, all right, like, maybe I'm not cut out for coaching. Like, you know, I know I've been a part of some really cool things, but nobody's willing to pay me. So maybe.
Right.
But yeah, I was fortunate that because I went down there to learn that day, I met him, and we kept in contact.
That's
and
it,
so
though.
when he got a job, I was able to get on.
Yeah. So talk about your next steps within your career there.
So, I think it was great because, he was the first time head coach. Obviously I have aspirations of being a head coach one day.
Right.
But like we were literally like building a program, from scratch in terms of like how he wanted it. The previous head coach, he had some great talent. Actually, guys who I coached in prep school had played at that school. So I knew a lot about the school, the program, but like he was intent on building it his way. And so it was cool to kind of be a part of building something from scratch. When I came to Yale, like it was already established.
Right.
Like it was, we were headed in the right direction. It was about, kind of taking it to another level.
There's a formula.
But like it was established. Like
yeah.
James Jones was never finishing below fourth in the Ivy League. Like
right.
that is, you can book it every single year, and again, we kind of took off after that. But so just to kind of see the work that it takes at the ground level was really cool to kind of be a part of. And he's a really smart dude, smart coach, and I learned a lot from him. Not only about coaching, but like just about, building a program. And there were some other really great guys on the staff. Tom Pecora, who was the associate head coach, and he had been a head coach at Hofstra for a long time, and he was a head coach at Fordham. And so he brought another perspective of already being a head coach.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from him, and, other guys on staff were great, and just kept learning, kept watching, kept learning. But like we were trying to build a program. We're trying to build it.
I love that. That's something. So I get a lot of small business entrepreneurs on this podcast, your dad included, and I know that was one of the biggest things when you got out of the corporate world is you had structure, you had assistance, you had books, you had guidelines around every single thing that you did. And then you hit the world of small business, which is like going to a new program, right? So you're building that from the ground up. You're building that foundation. So it's a really interesting parallel. And I know a lot about that. Tony obviously knows a lot about that as well. So what were some of the things you specifically took to go apply to your future programs from like having to build that from like the ground up?
Yeah, you can't crack on your culture. Can't crack on it. Like it's gonna be tested. You got to be able to stick to it. You got to know what you want and know what you want it to look like. Now, you're going to make some adjustments to things, but, like, what you want it to be and how you want to run things, like, you can't crack on it. Because once you do, it's like the crack, it's just like on a windshield. Like, it's going to crack here, and then it'll crack somewhere else, and you may not even know it's happening. But like eventually it's gonna, blow up.
The integrity's gone.
Exactly. So, just being a part of like what it took to like really, really start driving that culture home, and developing the right habits, because your habits are just gonna get tested. That's it. Like,
What kind of habits? Showing up to practice on time, doing drills all the way through. What sort of habits are you talking about?
Like anything and everything you do, just do it to the highest level.
Right.
Like, excuse me, if you're gonna dive on the ball in practice, then you'll do it in the game. If you're not gonna do it in practice, you're not gonna do it in the game.
Yep.
Like, however you want that established, don't crack on it. Like if you want him to run to the sideline with both arms pumping, if he only runs and pumps one arm, like no, that's not good enough.
Right.
Do it again. You can't crack on that because you're basically building a foundation. Now, as you kind of get along, you can give leeway to some things, but like you when you're building that foundation, like the standards got to be the standard.
It's your non-negotiables.
Non-negotiable.
Right? It's about building. That's a really interesting point. Is building culture is it's about adding these things in, but it's also about subtracting the shit out that you don't want. And I think that's a really big part is you have to trim that fat constantly of what are we going to allow.
No doubt.
Because basically what happens is you're going to be presented with new opportunities, new situations where you have to show people what your culture is.
Yeah.
And it's your job to curb that and say, nope, it's not that or it is that.
Right.
And I think that's a really good example is the diving on balls in the game.
Yeah. 100%.
That's a great point. And we just had Jack Riggins, a Navy SEAL commander, 20-year veteran Navy SEAL commander, come in here. He was the last guest in Spark to Fire, and he said the same thing. And so, like building the culture within the teams, and he talked about how within SEAL Team 1, 2, 3, and 6, like how they were all different.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting as well. Is like these are all alphas. College athletes, right?
Right.
All alphas, D1 athletes, but their cultures are different.
Yeah.
And the winningest teams are definitely going to have a different level.
Oh yeah.
And so what do you think the So when you move forward, what were some things you continued to like? What's one thing that you just like? What's your non-negotiable thing in culture from like a work ethic standpoint?
Um, I think passion. Like whatever you do, just like bring every bit of passion you have into it. Like I'll give you every piece of passion that I have. Like you bring yours. Like no one wants to be around an energy drainer.
No.
And like constantly worry like, oh man, is he gonna be in a good mood today and all of that kind of stuff. Like you don't want to be around it. So like bring that energy and then just be on the details. Like every single detail matters. I've definitely learned that along the way. Like, eh, be it right or be it wrong,
Yeah.
whatever it is, the detail that you're gonna harp on, like as long as everybody's on the same page, it'll probably work out. Like it could be completely wrong. Like somebody be like, "Oh, that's all wrong." Like you can't teach it that way. Like if everybody's doing it, it'll probably work out.
Yeah.
But like every single detail matters. It all matters, And so like let's try to be on those details to the highest level, and let's focus on doing that, and being on the same page with those details. Like you can't skip the details. You can't.
Right. So you continued to move along in your career here. Talk about what happens next.
So finish up my second year, and you know, obviously there's always kind of things that kind of come your way. I had gotten to know the head coach at the College of Charleston, Earl Grant, and he was somebody that I really respected, and he would always kind of give me words of wisdom and things like that. And he had a opening on his staff, and he called me up, and we kind of talked about it, and it made sense. Like it was kind of heading back south a little bit, which is kind of closer to where I grew up to, and so an opportunity to do that, and and he was a great head coach too. I wasn't necessarily in a rush because I was working under a great head coach already. But I also understood that, like, hey man, like this is a good opportunity too. Like you're getting a little bit closer to home, which I hadn't lived in the South since I was 17. So
Right.
it was an opportunity to kind of do that, and still work for a great program. And it didn't end up working out. It didn't end up working out. Like we just couldn't get some details worked out and everything like that. But I was okay with that. Like I was like, hey, I'm in a good spot. Like I'm not worried about it. And a couple of weeks later, open at Clemson, and the head coach of College of Charleston used to be an assistant at Clemson.
Oh.
And he called me up and was like, hey, would you be interested? Actually sent me a text. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. And at the same time, I got a text from like two other people and like, hey, would you be interested in this job? And I was like,
Wait, two other people about the same job?
Yeah.
You're losing your mind at this
And
point.
so I'm like,
hell yeah, I'm interested.
I'm like, man, what is this about? Like, and so I was like, yeah, would love to talk to him, talk to the head coach and everything like that. And, like two people sent me the head coach's number and they're like, hey man, hit him up.
Yeah.
So shot him a text, and, we kind of connected a couple of days later. We talked on the phone a couple of times. And again, I was fortunate that the people that he talked to didn't say bad things about me.
Right.
Went down there for an interview. And we kind of clicked, and so the values that he had, for the program, were what I was about.
Talk about those values. Talk about what those are.
He's big on grit, and it was a TED talk by Angela Duckworth.
Okay.
That talks about like grit is basically a sustained effort towards a common goal. Like you're not looking for any sort of reward kind of as it goes along. Like you have a certain stick-to-itiveness that you're not willing to give up, and you're just going to keep plugging along until you reach that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not worried about anything that kind of comes along. You're just focused on getting better until you reach that common goal. And, so like that was something that resonated to me. Fortunately, like I said, we kind of talked and we clicked, and I had known already some of the players on their team. A couple of them, I had recruited them while I was at Yale. So like, had some sort of relationship with a couple of players, and so that made it a little bit easier. And I was fortunate, like he offered me the job while I was down there.
Yeah.
I was there for like 2 days, and last day we were having lunch, and he was like, "Hey man, I want to offer you the job." And I was like, "All right, cool, I'm coming."
That's awesome. And it's an
Yeah.
easy decision, obviously, right? I mean, amazing program and great coach. And so, what was it like when you first got there?
You know what? Like it was crazy because
And what you get? Sorry, give our listeners a little bit of a timeline. When did you go there exactly?
so I got there. I went for the interview at the end of March. I
Okay.
mean, no, I'm sorry, end of May.
Hmm.
End of May. It was May 31st where he offered me the job. I was supposed to be moving. My wife was pregnant. We were supposed to be moving into a townhouse on June 1st. So like I got back to Connecticut and I had to, call the realtor like, hey, we can't move into the townhouse. And then I had to call the apartment complex we were living in. And it was like, hey, we got to extend the lease. Like we were supposed to be out the next day. Like everything was packed up in the house. We're supposed to
Oh
be out the
man.
next day. So fortunately, they let me extend the lease. And fortunately, the realtor, like he was like, all right, cool. And they gave me all my money back.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's
it
nice
was,
of 'em.
I was really, really fortunate with that.
Yeah.
But so kind of trying to get everything in order. Like, the baby's supposed to be coming in like 3 weeks. My start date was June 11th.
Hmm.
So like I'm just kind of waiting for all the paperwork to go through and everything like that. June 8th, my daughter's born. I'm there for 3 days, and then I leave and go to fly to South Carolina to work.
Oh man.
And I came back up to Connecticut once because we were getting ready to play in the World University Games in Italy. And so like when I got there, we were practicing, like getting ready to go to Italy in like 2.5 weeks. And
Right,
so
thrown right into the fire. Then.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
there was really no like, oh, I'm kind of getting
No
myself
orientation.
settled. Like no, like, hey man, you here? Hey, we practicing at 3. And that was just kind of how it went. So like I didn't really have time to like, oh, I'm trying to figure everything out. It's
No.
like, no, you in practice and that's your group over there and they're looking at you to know what you're talking about. Like, so all right, let's go. And which I was happy with. It
Yeah.
I was sad I had to leave my family, in Connecticut.
Right.
But, fortunately
This is your dream.
it was what had to happen. So I left for Italy and went over to play in the World University Games. We ended up winning a gold medal there.
Dang.
But by the time I got back, my daughter was a month old. And so I grabbed them and we drove down. Took us 2 days to drive down from Connecticut down to South Carolina. And got settled in and we started back up.
Man. And so what's the congratulations, by the way. That's incredible. I mean, what a blessing. You got a new kid,
Yeah.
and then now this
I was
brand
fortunate
new
my
career.
wife understood.
What's that?
I said I was fortunate my wife understood.
Yeah. That's huge having a partner that is able to see that, right? I mean, you've been grinding towards this when you had no money, when you were not getting paid for it at all,
Yeah.
right? And so now another great opportunity comes up and you have this, right?
Yeah.
And so what are the things that you've noticed as you've worked with these elite athletes, elite coaches? What is the thing that set them apart from everybody else? Grit was a great one, right? What else do you think they have that really sets them apart?
The coaches that I've been around, and I think, I've tried to always remember this, as I go along my career, like, and, at every point in my life, I always hear this phrase, it's not about you.
Yeah.
There's frustrations with the job of like, oh man, this kid's not getting it, or like I gotta constantly be on him about this or whatever
Yeah.
it may be, or I don't feel like doing this, like, and I try to remind myself it's not about you. Like, one, you got a family. Two, somebody's family entrusted you with their child. And it's about like trying to help that kid be the best version of himself. And like, I'm constantly in search of trying to be the best version of myself. I'm definitely not there yet.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that.
But trying to be the best version of myself for them so that I can continue to pour into them. And I think, opportunities have come along, and no matter what, like I try to keep that in perspective. Like it's not about me. It's not about me. Like I get an opportunity to affect these kids every single day. I get an opportunity to affect the people around me every single day. And never taking that lightly. I remember the head coach at Yale used to always tell me, like, no matter who it is, it could be a janitor, like that conversation that you have with that person might be their most important conversation of the day.
Yeah.
It might be their most, like, you don't know what they have going on in life, like that 10 minutes you talk to them or 2 minutes, whatever it is, it might be their most important conversation of the day. So, just constantly trying to remember that, and, not necessarily, make it about myself, and always, again, you're trying to advance your career and all of that kind of stuff. But like, I think you're trying to be, along that way is the more important thing is being the best version of yourself and constantly trying to get better so that you can make your players better.
Yeah. I'm sure Tony's over here smiling because I'm sure he instilled a lot of those values into you. But what else did you take away from growing up under your dad? What were some of the things that you absolutely pulled and you took into this world?
Work ethic.
Yeah.
Work ethic. Like, just, no excuses. As he would say, pull your bootstraps up.
Yeah.
I hated that term as a kid.
You hated it?
But you just grind. You just work. Like, don't worry about the other stuff, whatever obstacle, whatever it is, like, just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing,
Yeah. What are some of your routines? And I'd love to hear some of the routines that you've seen from these elite people that you're working with every single day, coaches, athletes, this sort of stuff. But what are your personal routines every day that you're doing to stay ahead of your competition, ahead of your guys too, so you can lead them?
Again, like, constantly trying to find some way to get better, whether it's reading, whether it's talking to another coach, like, about how they handle a certain situation.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'll call another coach in the business at any level, like, hey man, like, how do you guys handle this situation? Like, I'm struggling with this kid, like, what would you do? So, trying to get better in terms of that, talking to guys in the NBA about things that they teach, because that's where these kids want to go. So
Right.
like, okay, well, let's get the information from them. So trying to get better in terms of that, reading books, articles, podcasts, anything, that, like, I can kind of keep in my storage bank that I may be able to use to, whether it be inspire them or, pass along to them, or something they may be struggling with or whatever it may be. So constantly trying to find a way to get better in those type of things. Again, so, like, you can help them become the best version of themselves. You might be taking a quote from a book, but they don't know it. Like,
But it doesn't, and that, even if you are, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just gonna ask you that, you're actively saving these quotes in your head for situations, and I think when we read, my reading retention is not great, right? I don't retain. If I wanted to recall everything that I read, it's not high, right? But this subconscious retention of, like, these life lessons that you're constantly imprinting into your brain,
Yeah.
that stuff eventually just starts coming out of you. And I've noticed that about myself lately as we run into situations and I have guys or gals asking me questions. You have the ability to look back on that bank and say, I read about this.
Yeah.
I talked to a mentor about this. That's what I've done a pretty good job of this year, is at least surrounding myself with those mentors and finding people at, like you said, different levels. That's so smart.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to go ahead and you're not going to go ask your direct competitor.
Right.
But if you can ask somebody that's in a completely different industry, but kind of at your level, they're still going to have lots of good things to share with you.
No doubt. No doubt.
And so, what are some of the books you've really enjoyed in getting better with your personal development?
Yeah. So I just read One Word That'll Change Your Life.
Yeah.
By John Gordon.
Bought that from my mom, actually. I'd never read it yet, but I need
Good
to
book.
read it. Yeah.
Good book. Also read Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Okay.
Really, really short book, but, like, super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful. That was one that really resonated with me. The strength coach that was at Quinnipiac, he would always give me books to read, so that helped me out a whole lot. Yeah, those are kind of two that kind of come to my mind.
Yeah.
Leave for God's Sake was another good one that I've read a couple times. The Inner Game of Tennis was a good one as well. It's all about, like, how to get your mind to kind of almost dummy down so that you can play at a really high level, and, like, you're not thinking. It's about trying to be able to get in, quote unquote, the zone.
Yeah.
Where
Flow
you
state.
can, where you can just, like, you're not thinking anymore. You're just playing. and like how to teach people able to do that.
Yeah. I love
So
this. I love
yeah.
this because I'm gonna reference Jack Riggins' podcast again. So he said, and I'll show you this video when we get done
Hmm.
podcasting. But he said he's like, the people that drive me crazy are the ones that'll go right before a huge negotiation or a big meeting or presentation. They're pounding coffee, they're throwing papers around because they're all
Yeah.
nervous and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And he's like, no, he's like, that's way off.
Hmm.
You need to be just sitting there, relaxing,
Yeah.
thinking, and then rely on your training.
Yeah.
But people don't rely on their training. They like to freak out. They like to just
Mhm.
pound coffee. All that different
Exactly.
stuff, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure
Exactly.
there's a version of that in athletics as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like the preparation, the habits that you built
Yeah.
are gonna be tested in the game.
Right.
So like, there's no cramming right before.
No, there's no cramming.
Like that.
Yeah.
Whatever you're getting ready to do, that happened a long time ago.
Right.
A long time ago. You've been building those habits for a long time. And so like you get opportunities to build those habits up, and the game is just gonna be like, all right, we're gonna see where they're at. Right. And so there's no cramming at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like either you spent the time and were intentional about developing the habits to get to that point, or you didn't. And one way or another, everybody's gonna find out. That's the thing about sports. It's gonna be in front of a lot of people too.
Damn.
So, but even if it wasn't, like whatever your habits are, it's gonna come out. So, yeah, like just now it's just time to focus and be locked in.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a really good clip for sure. And so when you see the vision of your future, do you actively think about, do you do a lot of visualization, meditation, that sort of stuff when you're thinking about your future and your career and everything like that, and how you wanna take your team to the next level, how you wanna take your guys to the next level? How are you thinking about that stuff? Is it something you think about every day?
I think about like how can I help them become the best version, like on the floor or off the floor, like in one way or another. Like whether it's, hey, just making sure I reach out to them, say what's up, talk to them about this, talk to them about that, whatever it may be. And sometimes like, we have conversations, we don't even talk about basketball, but I think the most important thing, or one of the most important things that I constantly try to talk to them about is just competing, no matter what it is. Like, I don't care what it is, in the classroom, on the floor, like just compete, and enjoy that part of it. Enjoy and compete even when you're in the process of getting better, like in your mind, like sometimes I'm messed up sometimes. Like sometimes I'll be working and like I want to stop doing something. And in my mind, I'm like, well, man, like I wonder if Louisville coach is doing this, or I wonder if this coach is doing this. And like it'll keep me going.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that person's actually doing it, but in my mind they are, right? Like,
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I've somehow rationalized it, but like I'll just keep working.
Yeah.
So, I talk to them about just playing games with yourself, that like you're working on a move or whatever and you want to stop or you tired and, you're like, oh man, like I can do this tomorrow. Be like, all right, well maybe that dude's doing it right now. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but you willing to risk it?
That's so great. I was just listening to something from Jocko. You know who Jocko Willink is by chance?
I have.
Definitely look him up when we get done with this. But he had something the other day. He's just like, I sleep about 4 to 6 hours a night. And he's like, yeah, I would love to sleep 8 hours. He's like, that would be great.
Yeah.
Can't do that though, because I have this constant, just this incessant voice in the back of my head that goes, wake up.
Yeah.
The enemy's coming. They're training harder than you are right now. What are you doing?
Right.
I'm sleeping.
Right.
And like he's just like that. I'm up every single time.
No doubt.
Thinking about the next game or thinking about, the big presentation. That's something I've seen for common traits of high performers is they've got that voice in the back of their head, the devil's advocate voice. It's like you could work harder.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right?
100%. 100%.
You have that? You guys have that? You guys all got that. Yeah. What's that? You wish you could silence. Yeah. That's what he said as well. So that's great, man. And for what advice would you give anyone that wants to, work their way up in athletics like you did? Somebody that wants to work with you on athletes, the elite. What would you give them for advice?
You know what? Like just again, always remember that it's not about you. Again, like no matter what your circumstance is, like you're in a profession, you're in a business, and I don't care what the business is, whether you're service, whether you're, working in corporate America, like there's somebody that needs you, right? And like I'm fortunate I'm in a business where I can see who needs me, but you might be in a business where you can't see who needs that product, who needs that service, you know, sometimes. But like always trying to remember it's not about you, right? And like constantly just try to get better, because you just want to be like, if you get an opportunity, you want to be ready for it. And even still, you're not going to always be ready for it. Like I got from Dartmouth, I went from prep school to Dartmouth, and I was like, you know, man, like I've been working for this, and I got down, I sat in front of my desk, and I was like, damn, where do I start? Like, what do I do now? Like I'm here, but what do I do? And I was fortunate the associate head coach, you know, was a good dude, and I went to him, and I was like, listen, man, I'm gonna be honest, man, I don't even know where to start with this. Like, just show me how. Just show me, and then I'll figure the rest of it out. Like, just give me a little starting point, and I'll figure the rest of it out.
Yeah.
And he did. He was like, okay, take this and look at this and call these people or whatever. Start reaching out to all your contacts, and like, that's how you start. All right, cool, got it. I'll figure the rest of it out. But you know, just keep competing to get better, but in the back of your mind, remember, you know, hey man, it's not about me. And like, if you just put the passion into it, and that was listen, I had job opportunities kind of going along, even when I was at Yale. Like, I had opportunities, and I interviewed at jobs that like they were gonna pay me. And, you know, I talked to those coaches and saw what their vision was in terms of like me as an assistant, like how I was gonna get better, like what my impact was gonna be, you know, if they were gonna, you know, kind of pour into developing and like letting me learn to get better.
Right.
And they had no vision for that. So I said, no, I'm not coming. And people were like, you're out of your mind. Like, you got to take this job. Like, it's going to pay you. You're not getting paid. And I was like, I know what it looks like. I know, like, what I'm supposed to get to and, like, how I'm supposed to navigate it. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but, like, the money will come. The money will come. It'll come when it's supposed to. And, you know, always be happy for your friends that advance and get opportunities. And, like, knowing that, okay, if I put in the work, I'll get mine, too. They may get theirs before me. That's okay. Yeah. Like, I'm excited for that person. I'm happy for that person.
That's great advice.
Like, let them, you know, like, your path is your path, you know, and it's easy to compare sometimes. It is. And you're like, I know I'm working just as hard as that person. Like, you know what? Like, but maybe it's not about that. Maybe it has nothing to do with that. Like, they just got their shot before you did, and that's fine. Like,
your shot may be bigger. In 2 months could be it may be,
right? And it might take 2 years. It might take 5 years. I don't know. But, like, just be genuinely happy for those people that they got a chance. And, you know, when you get a chance to help somebody else, you do it.
Dang. That's incredible advice. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for coming on today, man. I'm excited to go smoke a cigar and listen to the rest, you know, listen to you tell this story to the rest of the audience at Capital Cigar. So thank you.
No, thank you, man. I enjoyed being up here.
Yeah, this is great. Hey, guys, it's going to do it for another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and please leave us a written review on iTunes. That's how we go up and rank in the algorithm. That's how we get more people listening. And as always, keep striking.